Hello and welcome to my studio. I'm Jessie and this is the Knit Up and Dye podcast, episode 133, Analysis Paralysis. My pile is starting to diminish, but don't worry, I've got other projects on the needle and we'll have plenty to talk about. Today I'm going to show you the next sweater in the pile. This is my Westerly. Hold that up. I love this sweater. I love this sweater. The pattern is Westerly. It is by Elizabeth Doherty. I knit this in a sport weight yarn that I dyed myself. This is in my chocolate colorway. And unfortunately, I can't get this base anymore. I wish I could because it was wonderful to knit with. I had gotten it originally as a special order for a client. And I had leftover skeins of it from the original order, and I dyed it all in this beautiful chocolate color. And I've had it on hand for ages. I had another sweater slated for it, and that pattern just, I wasn't gelling with the pattern. It had some issues. The yardage against the weight that they were calling for wasn't matching up. It had been a hand spun yarn, and I just couldn't get it to work. When I did gauge swatches, it wasn't coming up where I needed it to, and so I moved on and I found a pattern that worked for it. Like I said, this is Westerly by Elizabeth Doherty. It is a V-neck top down in the round seamless sweater, and it was an absolute delight to knit. And I have worn it a couple times. I have a little bit of pilling, so I do need to take a shaver to it, because I'm gonna wear this baby out. I love this sweater. One of the cool features of this sweater is that she does a self-finishing neckline. She has you do a slip stitch, a couple of stitches in from the selvage, and I'm hoping that I can uncurl this and show you. There's a slip stitch, just a couple stitches in from the actual edge, and it does a natural roll. And that's it. That's all you have to do. And I love it. It finishes off this V-neck so beautifully. Just nothing more had to be done with it. She has a false seam down the center front. See if the camera is seeing that at all. As well as down the center back. There is a seam along the shoulder line. And she has you do false seams down the sides of the body and down the underside of the sleeve. While I'm not normally a fan of a false seam, this one's easy. It's just a slip stitch every other round, and it really does add a finishing touch and just a hint of fashion to this, rather than it being a straight stockinette brown sweater. It has a flair to it. It's a straight body. It is a split hem here at the bottom sides. You see my little monkey. It is a split hem, and it does have a broken rib on the hemline and at the sleeve cuff. I adored this. It knit up very, very quickly, even being on a sport weight, which is smaller. That's for those of you who are like, what sport? Sport is between fingering, which is sock weight, and DK double knit weight, which is slightly lighter than worsted. I really enjoyed this pattern, mainly because I didn't have to pick up the neck and finish the neck. That is a huge plus for me. I loved the self-finishing edge on that. This is a pay-to-play pattern. It is available on Ravelry. I'm not sure if Elizabeth has it in other places. Likely she does, or she would make it available for you. I wish I could say that this yarn was yarn that I could bring back into stock and sell. I really loved it. It was a plain merino. It was not a superwash. And like I said, it was a sport weight, and it was just wonderful to work with. Unfortunately, my supplier doesn't seem to be making it, supplying it, carrying it, whatever, any longer. And I'm really kind of bummed about that, because I'm going to wear this out, and I loved it. I think, looking at it, that I could probably get away with gauging down, using a smaller needle and a smaller yarn, and working it in a size up and do this in fingering weight again. I would definitely knit this sweater again. If you have some sport weight kicking around, give it a look-see. I do not remember if she has another version if she has another version in a heavier weight. I do know that from time to time some of her patterns overlap a little bit, and she will have a version that is fingering and a version that is worsted or DK. This is my Westerly and I adore it. Could not be happier with that project. Got to figure out how to make this again. I need to check her patterns and see if there is a similar or parallel pattern at a different gauge, or I'm going to have to do some math. And that's kind of my jumping off point for what I wanted to talk to you guys about today. Analysis paralysis. It's a condition that I suffer from often. It's that point where you stop making progress because you're over-analyzing what you're doing. Or you don't have the time to dedicate, the headspace to dedicate to doing the analysis you need in order to make the next step. And I have, from time to time, 1 or 3 projects that are stalled. They're just in this weird timeout where I can't move to the next step because I'm frozen. And sometimes I don't know why I'm frozen. Sometimes I know, oh, I have to measure that and make sure and compare that with the pattern before I do the next step, which lately has been a challenge. I can't read a tape measure lately. I'm working on another sweater right now, and I had to knit the body to a certain length, and I measured that thing 6, 7 times and was sure that I was at that length, compared it against the pattern, everything was good, tried it on and discovered that I was 2 whole inches off. I have no idea what was happening there. I reread it, I remeasured it, and was like, how did I think that I was in the right place? I don't know. Stop. Take time. Make sure you know what's going on. That over-analysis isn't always a bad thing. Had I continued on, had I not put that in timeout and taken a break, I would have ended up ripping back more than once. Yes, this project has been ripped back a couple times. But more than that, more than just measuring, sometimes it is, especially in my design work, where I have too many options. And I end up chasing squirrels. I end up going, okay, I have a hat. I could do a ribbed brim, and I knit that. And I look at it and I go, that's all well and fine, except this is color work, and just going from ribbing to color work, that transition is clunky to me somehow this time on this design. Well, what if I do a rolled sewn brim, a double brim, and I start that work, and then it's, you've never done this before, how much needs to be rolled and sewn under? Do I need to change gauge? Is it going to be too tight now that it's a double layer there? Is it going to be too loose because it's not ribbed? Suddenly it's a double stockinette. How do I write that? How do I explain that in a pattern? This is something I've never done before. Do I need to add more length? All these things start to lock up. And then I go, okay, you know what? We're just going to knit through this. We're going to take a look at it. It's just a sample. And if it works, great, we're going to go with it. And if it doesn't, we'll learn from this sample and move forward. And then I get that bit done that I'm going to turn up in, and I get ready to pick it up so I can do the color work beyond that. And I go, how am I going to turn that? Well, I'm going to do a row of purls, and I'm going to turn that edge. Should it be in a contrasting color? Something that works with the color work? Everything stops again, and I start analyzing all the different options that I have. This is a big chunk of why I test knit my own stuff. Most of my designs I knit in progress of the design process. This may not be the healthiest way to do this. I don't know. My creative process was not taught to me. It's something I stumble through. It's something that I have learned and developed on my own. But for me, making those decisions is best if I do it while I'm working it. I still lock up. I still overanalyze. I still get paralyzed by having too many options. And I question if maybe I sketch it out first. That'll be it. For me, that doesn't work. If I set my plan too tightly and I don't leave wiggle room for inspiration or creativity, I get even more paralyzed. So how do you get past analysis paralysis? I don't know. I don't know. And I don't know how it comes undone. It's a funny thing when you've got something in timeout and you know it knows why it's in timeout. It was bad. For some reason it was misbehaving. We don't know why it chose to misbehave on that day so many months ago. But when you pick it back up, it's like the clouds part. And all of a sudden it all makes sense. And you go, oh, why did I stop here? I only had an inch left to go on this. Maybe things need to cook. Maybe things need to simmer for a little while. Maybe it's not always analysis. Maybe it's just plain, it needs time in the subconscious. I don't know. I would love to hear from you. I would love to know, what do you do? Do you suffer from analysis paralysis? Do you get stuck? Do things go into timeout because there's too many options? Or that you're over-analyzing the instructions and just don't understand at the same time? God, those are the worst words in the world, I swear. Or the next instruction is just more than you have headspace for at that moment. I remember the first time I did German short rows. I actually was working from a pattern that had been not professionally translated by the designer or by an agent of the designer from German to English. And that whole... So German short rows. When you turn, you slip the first stitch and you take the yarn from whatever position it is in, the front or the back, and by pulling up over the needle and tensioning it, you make it look like it's got two legs on both sides. Easy enough. Try explaining that in broken English translated from German. Poorly. Wrapping my head around that was so difficult. I had done wrap and turn. I did not understand this yarn over twin stitch, whatever the translation had been at the time, and that thing sat in timeout for over a year. Now I do it in my sleep. Fortunately, I had a friend who was Swiss German who went, oh yeah, you just pull it up over. Oh. But analyzing an instruction that's new to you to death, rather than asking questions, like I should have done maybe a year sooner, would have stopped that paralysis for me. I'm curious. I would love to hear how you get beyond that break. Do you have a method of stopping analyzing or accepting your options or utilizing multiple options or working through the options differently? Or the interpretations, maybe options isn't the right word, the interpretations that would help me. You would not believe how many designs are sitting in this studio all paralyzed. It's really quite scary in here. It's very post-Halloween somehow. Analysis paralysis. In other news, I have an acquisition this week. I had placed an order from Unwound. Unwound is in La Crosse, Wisconsin, and they have their shop is online currently. They do have in-person sales by appointment, And unfortunately this year I was not able to go up and have a trunk show. COVID has been a challenge for us all, and I miss my Unwound family desperately. I have even had dreams so vivid that I was sleeping in a hotel room up there and woke up and was confused because I was home. I'm so used to going up and spending my week each year up there that it really has been a sad time for me not to go. So anyway, I shopped there regardless of whether I'm here or there. I can shop there simply by going online. And I had seen this colorway on Needles at the Ready podcast, I think it was them that had this, and I fell in love with the name more than anything. And when I went onto the Unwound website, I discovered that they were carrying it too, and I placed an order. This is Smell My Feet, Trick or Treat, Smell My Feet. This is my post-Halloween gift to myself. This is in their Spotlight base, which is a fingering weight, 400 yard, 100 gram, 80% superwash blue-faced Leicester, and 20% nylon. And it is just the most fascinating color. Smell My Feet. I'm not sure what color I thought that was, and I don't know how I didn't get a good look at that color on Needles at the Ready podcast, but I love it. It has some dirty, smelly kind of shades in it. There's some greens in here, there's some pinks, there's some peaches, there's some browns, and there's some grays. It's there's the occasional speckle of teal in there. It's all very muted tones. I think it is just lovely. I have no plan for it, but I think likely that this is going to be socks. Again, this is Leading Men Fiber Arts, Center Stage for color. They are just fancy and wonderful. And it came with a cute little stitch marker for me, a little key. Absolutely delighted with this purchase. Very, very happy to have an opportunity to work with this. It's squishy and lovely. Certainly, if you're looking for a shop to shop online, check out Unwound, and I'll have the link here for you guys. I also picked up a pair of little scissor snips that I adore, and another needle. Yes, I got a needle from them as well. Circular needles. You can never have too many circular needles. I think that is about everything I have for you today. We will keep visiting and keep working down through the pile here. We have 3 sweaters, a shawl, and a cowl to go, and maybe by then I'll have added something to the bottom of the pile as well. I look forward to spending time with you. Thank you for joining me today, and let me know how you bust out of your paralysis. Bye.